Hey everybody, how you doing? I am Tom Davis. I am the instructor for this class, Writing for Media, and welcome to the spring semester. This is now, I think, the third or fourth semester in a row I'm teaching asynchronous. It's worked out well. Ideally, we would rather be in the classroom itself, but this is what we're doing, and I have tried to do everything I can to basically make myself as available as possible to everybody. Um, we have the Zoom, we have, you know, email me if I even let you text me, whatever. Just do whatever you can to get a hold of me if you ever need any help. This is the introductory course for journalism, the real one, not the one you take that typically take at the beginning of the journalism major. So I'm a Rutgers grad, so I understand what that's like. Who am I? I am the managing editor of a publication called Best Review. It covers the insurance industry. Been in journalism for a very long time. Now, since 1989, full time. She started technically when I was 16, but whatever. But I graduated in '89 from Rutgers. And I like to say that I got my graduate degree eventually at Columbia, but I really got it at what I call the School of Hard Knocks. And that's where you really learn. You really learn on the job. And I try to make this class, I try to model this class that way. Okay. Very much learning on the job. Of course, we're limited what we can do, especially now that as I give you this talk, we're in the middle of this Omicron surge. So I know a lot of things have been, restricted or whatever because of it. But we do the best we can. Okay. And what I do is I probably even bend some rules a little bit in terms of what's allowable in journalism and what's not in order for you to get information from people. So not too much, not to the point of lack of morality. Okay. So anyway, so where else? So I worked at various newspapers. Atlantic City Press was one, so I worked in the 90s, and then Bergen Record in the 2000s. And then that's when I got my graduate degree, and I became the editor of the New Jersey editor of Patch.com. Yes, I was there for 11 years, from 2010 until 2021, and then I left there, pursue other ventures at Best Review. Now it's interesting. Now I actually do traditional journalism more than I've ever done, probably ever. I now actually basically run and operate a magazine, and put it together and even write for it. So, Patch.com was a venture that is still going on, and very good venture, especially for beginning people. We covered everything local. Every kind of local news happening in every towns. We started what they would call essentially patches at towns across America. I helped start a bunch of patches at the Jersey Shore. That's where I grew up, Point Pleasant. So anyway, it was just really time to move on. Now in my mid 50s, so here we are. As far as my Rutgers experience is concerned, I've been here since 2004, so this is now my 18th year here. So as a part-time lecturer. So, all right. All right. So writing for media, as I mentioned before, is essentially the writing course, and this is the lecture. And I will expect you to watch these lectures every week. Again, not the most ideal situation. I usually speak from my bedroom, by the way. Today I actually typically record these on Sundays, and then I post them, and then I make them available to you by Tuesday, or actually on Mondays typically, but because Monday is Martin Luther King Day, we're starting on Tuesday, so you'll be getting this on Tuesday. So, all right, so let's and I've talked about myself, some generalities about the course. Let's actually show you what's available to you in this course. Okay. So Canvas. I'll be going over the syllabus, where I'll be repeating a lot of this stuff, but just kind of give you a general idea like where this class operates, where it centers around. Canvas is pretty much our base of control. And as you can see right here, we have an introductory page. This is pretty much standard introductory page I've been using now for a couple of years now. Again, I used to teach this class entirely in person, but when everything went down in March 2020, we switched to the online. So I also teach digital media, teach that in person actually, although we are delayed by 2 weeks for that. Anyway, all right. So like I said, this is our base of control, for lack of a better term. Anyway, so I will be communicating with you via email. And that is actually one thing I'm going to be asking from you is to actually email me to say hi, because I like to use the traditional email to communicate with people. But I'm almost in an OCD kind of way, try to really work hard to make sure that information gets to you. So what I do is I post an announcement typically when I post a lecture. You can see that these are old announcements. Actually, I should be in the student view. So let me do that. Because, all right. So anyway, yeah, these are old announcements. These are because, I teach this class continuously. And so what you're going to have to worry about is just something that, mine will probably say welcome to class. That was from last semester. All right. The assignments, I'll be making aware of assignments and lectures and in my communications to you. These are there actually are assignments actually already posted, and I will be getting into this too, but these are the reading assignments for the book that we have for this class. We actually have 2 books. All right, they are already posted actually, and they already even have deadlines going all the way to April 18th. So, all right, but I'll explain what all that means in a bit when I get to the syllabus, okay? I do post the grades. I didn't used to do that, but now I do. Okay. All right. What else here? The modules, and we have the modules which actually kind of give you basically a guide of what we're talking about each week. Okay. So this says week 1, usually goes week by week by week. You see we have spring break here. Week 9 is actually technically spring break. So, but I introduce obviously a different topic each week. What I typically do is the first half of the semester. I mean, this is really very much a basic course. In the first half of the semester, I actually really just deal with the basics of writing. Okay, and I know some people come into this course and kind of think like, oh, I'm going to be like, we're going to be like reporting on things in Europe and stuff like that or whatever. Well, sometimes journalism isn't as glamorous as people think it is. I love it. It's the only profession I've ever thought about doing, other than teaching, I guess. So, it's very much about like writing about what's happening in your local area. It's very much about what's happening in your local area connected to maybe what's happening nationally, like issues like inflation or, economy or whatever. It's very much about what happens in your backyard. Okay. So we'll be doing a lot about writing in your own backyard, which means that you'll be interviewing and writing about topics that deal with Rutgers, especially. Okay. So anyway, but the first half will deal with essentially the essentials of writing and how I envision and how I look at writing and how I believe essentially a news story should be written. And one thing you're going to learn for a lot of you come from, everybody comes from, I came from this, came from a land where, writing was only really one way. It was essentially essay writing, expository writing, that sort of thing. But, and what you should know is that news writing is actually just it's writing, but it's a different craft of writing. Okay. It's very much simplistic, very, very much more simplistic. It is the most popular literary form of literary writing in the world because everybody reads it, and it's in it's not just something that's produced by a newspaper, it's produced by social media, Facebook, whatever. All that's essentially news writing, gossip, letting you know what's going on in life, letting the people know what your opinion is. That's like essentially news writing. Okay. And it's a very top down science. You were taught earlier in your lives to basically write stories or basically say what I did on my summer vacation. But you're essentially usually told to write that in essentially some sort of chronological order or with like a topic statement. But news writing is about writing about what's the most important thing. What do I care about? Why should the reader care? That's basically what the first paragraph tells you. And then the rest of the story essentially deconstructs the story and gives you the who, what, where, why, how, when, why that story is important. Okay. Of course, like I said, we'll be going on about this, talking about this as we go on. Okay. All right. All right. So let's see here. So that's essentially, this will essentially introduce the topics. As I said, the first half typically deals more with like the writing end of things, course introduction. Okay. That's obviously what we're doing today. Writing basics. And this is where, I incorporate kind of merge lecture and book material together. And I'll talk about how that works. And I show essentially comparisons to how things have changed over the years, how the story of the Titanic sinking was covered compared to the moon landing, and showing how journalism evolved from 1912 to 1969. And now basically we're very much closer to what news writing is very much closer today to 1969, very much closer than it was in 1912. Okay. More AP style basics, writing for media and ethics. Okay. So that's basically, that gets it more into like when we try to provide more depth to a story and what you try to basically, when you try to find the ingredients to a story, what do you find? How do you look for it? That sort of thing. Okay. News writing structure, how the story should be ordered. Like I said, it's not like how I wrote the what I did on my summer vacation kind of style. We do more of that. Then I would say around this time is when we actually start getting into more of the I would say the reporting end of things, and how do you come up with information? What do you look for? How do you develop it? Okay. And that's when I incorporate different areas of journalism like PR writing, feature news, data journalism, that sort of thing. Okay. All right. So you can and then of course I have the writing assignments. The reading assignments also connected with each week. As you can see, almost every week there is something. I also, by the way, I have like a basic news writing instructional video. I mean, I talk about how to write a news story in this class, and I do it in a lecture, but I actually have a basic one that when people essentially we go down the road and people kind of forget, or they kind of don't really quite understand, I provide this as reinforcement. Okay. And you can see I've put it in week 4 because that's really around the time when people maybe kind of like, you have some people maybe are kind of like, I still don't get it. So, all right. All right. So let's talk about the syllabus. Okay. Which also, the syllabus also is posted on Sakai. Okay. This is interesting. You can see there's a very old fashioned Microsoft Word here. Okay. I've gone through like a bunch of computers recently. I'm right now working on a 10-year-old computer. Actually, it's working quite well, much better than a Mac Air. This is a MacBook Pro. So anyway, so here we go. Writing for media. As I said here, the updates to the site will be 9 a.m. Monday typically, except for this week when it'll be on Tuesday because of the holiday. I mean, whenever we have a holiday, we delay it for a day. Okay, but they will be posted weekly. All right. All right. I mean, I say see exceptions below. Or, if I remember correctly, there may be like occasions where, like, essentially, like, like I said, I'm trying to think if there are any off the top of my head. I mean, we have winter. We do have the spring break. There is the You know, we have Passover, we have Easter, we have different holidays, but you know, other than that, it's not like the fall semester where we have Thanksgiving and that sort of thing. So, all right. So anyway, let's just talk about this. This is my email address, okay? Obviously, and like I said, I like you to please. That's one of the. There's going to be two things I'm going to ask you to do, and this is one of them. That is to email me and let me know to say hi, I'm here, because I want your email address. I want to know what email address you typically use, okay? Because I want to make sure that is actually what, and I'll get into this in the syllabus, essential in this course to have a functioning email account. I've had situations where people haven't had that. Not good, okay? I also communicate via the Canvas email, but I like to have this gets to you. So, all right. All right. So writing for media is an introductory level course, writing course for students in the journalism and media studies program. This course is meant to build a journalism student's skill set from the ground up. Over the course of the semester, students will learn the basic rules of grammar and the official style used by Associated Press. So yes, there is some grammar learning in this class, but I actually do expect you to know something before you get here about grammar. Some basic punctuation, that sort of thing. And I realize that not everybody's going to have that. And that's for sure. Actually, to be honest with you, thanks to our wonderful education system, oh, that's so cynical. We don't know everything, and that's not a slight on you, but I've seen punctuation, wow, like not quite there in many cases, and very smart people. It's not your fault. It's like that movie Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. Okay, so we do deal with that a bit, especially in the first half of the class. Just want to make sure you got things right. But it's not just that, but like proper diction, correct use of words. One thing I can't stand is when people kind of swallow a thesaurus and think, and that's how you're taught what to do, and that is to essentially pad a story and pad an essay or whatever, so you can get to a certain word length. But I would rather you have it like shorter and basically make sense and essentially be readable and interesting than something that's padded, okay? And or using like really long words, SAT words as we used to call them, okay? Actually, journalism is very much simplistic, as I said, and actually it's supposed to be a language that everybody understands. You might, if I had a class in front of me, I would say, how many of you had a current event project when you're in fourth grade? Probably all of you raise your hand. But the whole idea of that is basically you have to go to like a news organization, a news site or newspaper, and you find a current event, and you're supposed to be able to read it and understand it. So, so basically, that's what you go for in journalism. Is you go for some sort of like fourth grade reading level. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, a little bit higher. They're more like seventh or eighth grade. But fourth grade, leaving it, there's nothing. That's not a slight. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be something that everybody can understand. Okay, everybody at every level, education level, whatever. Maybe not kindergartners necessarily, but basically to the point where you're actually at a readable age, where you can read fairly frequently. Okay, you can read Harry Potter. All right, so and actually that's the trick. It's not necessarily dumbing down or anything like that, but it's something that people. It can be a hard thing to do, is to try to like really like write in a very simplistic way, and I also call a conversational way. Okay, so how you would typically talk in typical conversation on the street, maybe at the bus stop or whatever. Okay, all right, so corresponding objectives: identify and analyze characteristics of various forms of media, print-based journalism. Okay. Research and edit content for diverse forms of media. I mean, PR is part of actually public relations. It just has a different audience. We talk a lot about audience in this class, and the audience for journalism typically is everybody. That's another reason why it is what it is. Science writing is for scientists. Analytical writing is for people, scientists, researchers, that sort of thing. But journalism is for everybody, okay? PR writing is part of journalism, essentially, but actually their audience is actually more narrow. It's actually the media they're trying to appeal to. Okay. A lot of the news and information comes from a public relations release, so that's why we talk about that. Okay. Clearly and accurately with focus is what I want you to do. Accuracy, clarity of focus are my three big tenets. And this is my whiteboard, by the way. I typically write off this. Accuracy, clarity, and focus. Okay. It's better to be right than fast. Okay. I know it's a 24/7 media nowadays, but you have to basically get things right. If you have one thing in journalism that has to work correctly and operate well, and that is the idea of making sure that what you're putting on the paper or putting up on the screen is correct. If you don't have that, you don't have any credibility, and basically your job starts before it even starts. Okay. If people can't trust what, I realize that's like a big deal in journalism right now. You keep hearing to talk about fake news and everything, but in a lot of polls, people say they don't trust the media and that sort of thing. I don't really tend to believe that, because if you have people who believe things on the web and see things on the web, and whether it's about anything involving science or whatever, this whole situation with the coronavirus, COVID, vaccines, and everything, people tend to believe what they read and hear, right? So even though they say they don't, but they do. So I like to think that maybe like from the trusted news sources, especially, people will especially believe what they read and hear. So if you're wrong, that's shot to hell. Okay. Clarity basically means, almost clarity and focus can be merged together, but focus means basically kind of just be able to kind of focus on like a topic from beginning to end, and you get everything you need to know about it, and you stay focused on that topic. A lot of people, when they first start out writing journalism, is that they actually kind of tend to go in 10 different directions as they're writing, because they feel like they got to get everything in there. Clarity basically means that you basically have to understand what you're reading. Okay. That the sentences make sense, that active voice, meaning that the noun comes before the verb. Okay. You check any kind of journalism story, and that's the way it's written. The noun comes before the verb. Okay. And basically very simple sentences. Okay. The dog bit the man. Okay. That's a journalism story. Okay. That's a journalism sentence. Okay. Simplistic. Usually not a lot of clauses, different clauses separated by commas, and very simple. I could actually just call something up right now, actually. I like to call the New York Times for this kind of thing, but let's just do it anyway, because the New York Times tends to write longer. Okay, so where are we here? Okay. Log in. Just log into my thing here. Okay. All right. Yeah, we got a 10 million mile long sentence there, but but look at this sentence. Mr. Putin wants to extend Russia's sphere of influence to Eastern Europe and secure written commitments to that NATO will never again enlarge. Okay, so that's actually a typically shorter sentence for the New York Times, but you can see wants to extend. It's very much every sentence. But as the Biden administration and NATO conduct, see, noun, verb. Okay, even in the long-winded New York Times, it's very much like that. It's very much no one expected. Okay, noun, verb. Okay, very declarative sentences, very direct. Okay. The Russian leader telegraphed. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to the syllabus. I tend to bloviate a bit, and I know I tend to go a little bit, sometimes a little bit long on these. So I try not to do that, but I can't help myself sometimes. All right. The books. Okay. Let's get to that. I actually have an online version of the book. If you're interested in that, I got it through this thing called Chegg. I don't know if they actually have it anywhere else now, but this is where I actually teach off of right here, and I actually will actually um, flip through the pages, and what I do with this is I'm going to be asking you to read chapter 1. Is I actually ask you this I do not test on the book, and one big thing is that there's actually assignments in this book. Those are not the assignments I give. Okay, so please ignore those assignments. Okay, in the book, I just ask you to read the book, and I don't test you on the book. Well, I should say I do actually test you on the book, and that is your writing assignments. Your writing assignments are essentially supposed to be the product of what I teach you and what the book teaches you. Okay, I use the book. Well, first of all, I'm required to use the book, A, but two, B, is that the book actually supplements and reinforces what I tell you. Okay, and sometimes it goes in areas where it kind of helps explains what I tell you. Okay, so so that's why we use the book. So yes, so I can tell when you're not reading the book when I see your stories, and I see things that I talk about and are reemphasized by the book, and it's not coming out in your work. Okay, so it's very easy to tell. Okay, doing this for 18 years. Okay, so yes. So anyway, I'm going to be asking you for reading assignments. Yes, and as I explained before, this is how it's going to work. And there'll be deadlines on that, but I'm not going to actually test or check up on you to see if you actually did them or not. But if I do see things in your writing assignments, which I do 6 or 7 of those, I will write in your notes on the paper on your work. I'll say well, I can tell you I haven't been reading the book or watching my lecture. So, so all right. And of course, also the Associated Press style guide. I used to give quizzes on that. I don't anymore because now I just expect you to actually just know it when you actually write your stories. I actually expect to see it. So when I actually grade your papers and everything, I actually expect to see that, and actually part of your grade of your paper will be whether you got the right style or not. What is style? Okay, well, basically, essentially, Associated Press style is essentially how to word things correctly. It's essentially an extension of a dictionary. Journalism, as I said before, is almost like a universal language of journalism. It's written kind of in a certain way, the same structure. I mean, I hate to do this, but I hate to compare it to McDonald's, but that's essentially what it is. Okay, and there's nothing wrong about that. Okay, it's not going to give you a heart attack. It's basically something that it can be very formulaic, and when people go from place to place, state to state, country to country, they want to be able to read, understand, and learn the same way they learn when they're at home. They're not really into, especially nowadays, they're not really into variety in terms of writing styles, that sort of thing. When they do, that's what a book is for. Okay, they can get challenged that way, or even a magazine. Okay, what they're really want to know is what's going on in their lives, what's happening, what's new. What's the latest with inflation, whatever. Okay, that's what they want. That's what they want. They don't really want to be challenged that much in terms of in terms of getting information. They just want the information. They want to put it on their plate, much like when they go to a different restaurant. They go to McDonald's in North Dakota, it's the same as it is in New Jersey. So they don't want to be challenged. They want to be, what's this food going to be like? Is it going to be bad? Is it going to make me sick? That sort of thing. They just wanted something they know is going to work for them. They know it's going to be consistent. Okay. So Associated Press essentially brings all that together. So one of the things it does, for instance, is it teaches you how to, one of the things, what's the typical style in terms of abbreviating for a state. One of the things it does is it doesn't go by the typical postal code like this. I think this is the postal code for Texas. They'll actually tell you to spell out Texas. Okay. I think Alabama is usually this for the postal code, but I believe for the Associated Press style, it's ALA, like a period. Okay. I believe New Jersey is this with the postal code, but for the Associated Press style, it's NJ, N period, J period. Okay. All right. So, and also like with courtesy titles, actually. Just give me 1 second, if you don't mind.